Good morning, everybody. We still have a few people coming in, but it's 10 a.m., so we're going to be mindful of your time and get started. So I want to thank y'all for joining us today. We're happy to be back on our regularly scheduled Zoom calls, our monthly calls here. We had a really great session, a couple of sessions actually, with the e-construction team and with headquarters construction at the conference, but happy to be back on this format so we can discuss some of the issues with construction and some of the things that have been popping up lately. Um, I'm not going to say too much to start. You will get to listen to me a little a little bit later in the call. I'll discuss some HeadLight stuff that has come up recently, but I think Brian's going to go ahead and kick us off with a little intro. So go ahead, Brian.
Morning, everybody. We've got a great agenda today. We're going to talk a little bit about HeadLight sampling plan feedback that we received, our HeadLight contract administration initiative and where we are with that, our new website that's been rolled out. We're going to talk a little bit about that and show you a few things. There's been some questions about our DocuSign forms for RFCOs. We've got category 2 and 3 that we're going to make available. We've got some materials, clarification, and guidance that Chris and Patrick are going to take you through. And if you have any questions, we'll go through those. And then, of course, our QA at the end of the session. I just wanted to take a minute to talk about, DOTD and all of our industry partners and everyone together, our contractors, our consultants. There's a lot of uncertainty right now. And obviously, if you're paying attention, we're in a transition period, and there's a lot of legislative changes that are being proposed and department reorganizations. And, we don't know what direction it's going to go. It's kind of unclear right now. I just want to, how does this impact you guys? How does this impact us? What's the impact on construction? Our project priorities, processes, and expectations may shift, but we just need to be adaptable. We need to be aware. We need to create awareness across the industry and just keep everybody in the loop. We have standard specifications and sound principles of how we do what we do, and we're good at what we do. So we just continue to do that and stay the course. The purpose of this webinar and, why we started in the first place, I think it's really going to continue to be extremely helpful, even with all this going on, is it's a space for discussion, collaboration, and shared insight, where we can provide consistent direction, especially during all this turmoil. So I'm just here to say, stay the course. We're here to help. Stay informed and connected, and working together is how we get through this and how we reach the other side. So without any more of that, let's get this started, and I'll turn it back over to Les.
Thanks, Brian. So today, look, I'm just going to take a few minutes to go over some recent feedback we got about HeadLight sample plan. And sorry to the contractors and industry leaders on this call. This probably doesn't pertain to you. This is more of an LADOTD and consultant issue. We do have some other topics that are relevant to you guys, though. So to get started, just last month, kind of the end of last month, early this month maybe, we got some feedback from District 3, who has been working lately to try to dive into the sample plan and learn how to use it and kind of integrate it into their projects. And we appreciate that, and we really appreciate the feedback we got from them. They took some time. I know they have like maybe monthly PE meetings or maybe even more often than that. And I think the issue arose at the PE meeting, like, hey, these sample plans, trying to learn this is causing some issues. So we really appreciate Mike Roncarts was able to put together some feedback and send that over to us through Eric. And we really appreciate that. We don't overlook that. We want you guys to know you're heard. And just to kind of talk about some of those issues that they were discussing there. Particularly, I think the main thing was the time that it took to complete a sample plan. And Mike was able to share with us that the first one they did took 3 days with 3 different people. And I can see that happening. Like when we're, you're trying to learn a new software, lots of things going on, that can be a problem. I just want to share there, though, that some of the feedback we've gotten across the state is that, and we got that same feedback from many other people, not just you guys. And so what we were hearing was, after they did 2 or 3 of them, those times really start shrinking down. And the feedback I was getting at the conference was hey, this is not so bad. I've kind of learned it, figured out what we need to do, and it, it's pretty easy for us now. And they actually kind of preferred that, especially with the digital signatures and being able to get those signed and that kind of stuff. And that's not to overlook with what you guys sent in. I think it's very important to know, and we've said from the beginning that HeadLight sample plan, we realized early on at headquarters here that it was going to take more time. And we really strive hard not to do that with the PE offices. We don't want to implement something that actually causes more time because you guys don't have the time. We totally understand that. But in this particular case, we did feel like it was good to go ahead and get this out to everybody. For one, we were having problems with our audits, and so we wanted to give you something, especially the dashboard that's included in sample plan, to be able to help manage the samples and be able to get those 2059s done and turned in on time. And I think that's there. There's some issues with how long it takes to get to the dashboard you need to get to. There's a lot of clicking that has to go on there. We're not real, satisfied with the way that is, but I'll talk more about that later. So doing that and also just getting that sample plan stuff out to you so we could get those digital signatures and that kind of stuff was really a focus there. But also that dashboard that you create at the beginning of the job using the sample plan software, really we found the benefit on the inspector side. So the inspectors, especially if we have some that are inexperienced or maybe new to the industry altogether, they have no idea what the material codes are that they need to select. Well, when you build that sample plan ahead of time, you are pre-selecting that for them, right? There's just in the dashboard on their iPad, it's just create a new sample. That stuff auto populates from that point. So there is time consumption at the beginning, but time savings throughout the project. And those might not even equal out. Like, is it a lot of time savings? Maybe not, but I do know that the inspectors really like sampling from that dashboard. In fact, most of them tell me that's the only way they want to sample instead of creating one from scratch. So just some other feedback there. I will say that some of the issues, and we're not going to go through every issue that was kind of brought up in that feedback, but some of the stuff is like we have been putting workarounds in place. Like we put in like a generic material code to cover some of our field tests. That's not ideal. Like we get that. None of the feedback that was sent in is stuff that caught us off guard. We've heard it from many people before. And we will say, like, our focus really has been, and HeadLight's focus really has been contract administration software. And that was one of the things that was brought up. Like, you're giving us this tool that is not perfect, and we're trying to move on with this other stuff. And unfortunately, that's true. We do have to get Site Manager out of the way. Like, that is our main goal. And so there has been a lot of focus there, but also, HeadLight, seeing some of this feedback, we got the word over to them, and they have agreed to kind of work in conjunction and side by side with both of those. And so you will probably see some changes to that coming soon. Some other simple stuff like the instructions not being correct in sample plan. There was a time when some stuff got overwritten from Site Manager, and the instructions that are in HeadLight were pulled from Site Manager. I think all that's been corrected on the Site Manager side, but HeadLight never pulled that in. So that will be fixed pretty soon. Actually, that's probably the first thing they're going to work on. So all that being said, like issues being said, we want you guys to continue to send in feedback, and not just District 3. So we want to hear from everybody on this issue. Like, what are your pain points with sample plan, especially right now that we have HeadLight's ear on this and they know there's an issue that needs to be corrected. We want to be able to get that feedback to them so they know what to fix. And moving on, so yes, we have issues, but is there any good news with sample plan? And there is. Like I was saying before, what I've heard from users is as they've been using it, they kind of get used to it, understand what they're supposed to do, and they like it. Like I've had several people come up to me at the transportation conference and say they actually preferred it now, that they've kind of gotten used to it. So that's good to hear, that we are able to at least perform the function that sample plan is supposed to perform, right? We are actually able to get one through the system and get it signed. So that's good news there. I talked about the dashboard being a positive there. The inspectors really like that, even though it's tough to get to in some cases. leading from sample plan is the ATMs and the digital, forms of those ATMs. We've had several of those. I would probably say, I don't know the exact count, but probably upwards of like 10 to 12 that have gone through the system fully, right? They've been created, submitted, signed by the PE, DLE, and the area engineer, and even reviewed by our audit section here at headquarters. And so we're seeing some really good news there. People tend to like that digital process. It keeps us from shipping paper all over the state, having to get wet signatures on it. So we think that is a positive. But besides all that, like what happens next? Like that's what you guys want to know. Like what's going to be done? Your feedback was heard. Like I said, we sent that over to HeadLight, and they immediately started putting a plan together to take care of some of this and work alongside in parallel with contract admin stuff. So they right now are putting together like a scope of what it's going to take to make some of the changes that you guys sent in. Once they get that plan together, they'll send it over to the e-construction team, and our job will be to prioritize that. And obviously, we're going to prioritize bugs in the system. There was an issue where it was holding on to some of the information, like some of the data that was input. They would delete it, and then it would come right back. So that definitely has to be fixed right away. Getting the instructions fixed right away, those two will be probably top priority. But then just some of the niceties, right? Trying to make it just a little bit easier. That's probably what'll follow next. And so continue to send in that feedback. I'm actually going to drop a link in the chat when I get done here. It's just a general feedback form. It comes to my email, and we'll be able to kind of compile all of that stuff to send over to HeadLight as well. But there has been movement. That's really what I want you to know is you sending stuff in. We were able to get that to HeadLight, and they have put a plan in action and have started, they've gotten people started working on it. That's the main thing to come away from this with. Continue the feedback. We know sample plan is not where it needs to be, and learning a new software in the middle of being busy with construction is not fun. We get you, we hear you, we've been there before. In fact, we're going to talk about the website here in just a little while. If you've looked at that thing and tried to figure out where to find your old stuff, it's very difficult to do. Thankfully, I've kind of starting to get used to it. But yeah, we know it's really more of a change management issue. But hey, look, we hear there's problems with the software, and we want to fix that. And hopefully, you guys feel like the e-construction team has been responsive in that. If not, please send that in the feedback. Like if we have not been responsive to your issues there, we want to know that as well. You're not going to hurt our feelings. We want to know if we're doing the job that we need to do to kind of keep you guys moving out the field. So that's all I have there. Brian, do I pass it to you or?
No, that's everything. Thanks, Les. Like I said, any questions on that, we can talk about it at the end of the session. We're going to move to our next topic with Patrick Eisenagel, our e-construction engineer, our current status on contract administration, where that's at and where we're headed. Patrick?
Morning, everyone. So we've got the LaGov intake integration on our side is up and ready to test, and HeadLight is doing their finalization of their part of the integration this week. So we're supposed to have the export from HeadLight so we can test the import into LaGov. And if all that goes successful, we're basically looking at probably May to start the pilots, and we're looking at 2 units to start pilots in. We're going to, of course, Les and Brian's favorite 256, and I think Kevin Adams also sent in a couple projects, so we're probably going to reach out to him and run another pilot on his side. So we'd ask to at least run 2 estimates through these pilots on each of these projects. So given that timeline, we're probably looking at, somewhere around a Q3 statewide rollouts of a lot of the contract administration. And that should also give them enough time to polish off the material side and limb side and get a lot of these other things up to par so that as we roll out, we can kind of train as an entire suite instead of just individual components. And again, just to reiterate what Les said, a lot of the feedback, if it's just one, it's just one person screaming. But if we have examples from 20 people or an entire district screaming, it's so much easier to reinforce that idea and get those changes pushed at a higher priority. because a lot of what was on that list we had on our list as well, but it was deemed a lower priority because we'd only heard it from one or two people. So just keep that in mind rolling forward. Be vocal, be communicative, and let us know.
Absolutely. Thanks, Patrick. All right, next up, we're going to talk a little bit about our website, the new website. That's the outward facing, not the internal website. And turn that over to Matt Jones to give us an update.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm sure y'all have noticed the main DOTD webpage changed. I believe it was Thursday of last week. So it's been about a week that it's been up and running. And of course, if y'all had created links, things like that to the original webpage, those are now broken. So this is should be helpful for the consultants and contractors. Let's see here, trying to share the screen now. So hopefully everybody can see the web page here. This is the new website. So of course it's changed. Let me hide this so that it's not taking up space, but this is the new area. And so, you know, as you scroll through, you can obviously see it's different. The main thing is we wanted to provide information for everyone so that y'all can see where information can now be found. So the first thing is in the about area. Most folks are trying to get to Citrix, that sort of thing. It's still the same area. It's still this employee portal. Of course, that used to be up here in the upper right-hand corner of the original DOTD webpage. But come here, you can access, you know, Citrix, remote systems via Citrix. So you can see there, that is right there. But it also has, again, if you need to reset your domain account, which is your Citrix account, for consultants and or contractors, if you need to set up a new Falcon ID, if you need to set up a ProjectWise ID, all of that information can be found if you come to the About section and go to the employee portal. So that's the quickest, easiest way to access most of the information that y'all are usually going to via Citrix. And so that's the, like I say, the quickest, easiest way. You also, our webpage is under Office of Engineering Construction. And again, we have lots of information here. You go through, we got our staff directory. We have a quick link to construction services, which I'll touch on that in a minute. Our headquarter area engineers, work zone. So this is, of course, where the traffic control logbook is. So if you need to access that, again, that's not on the under the employee portal, but it is here under work zones, the traffic control logbook. And again, that takes you to the web page for the traffic control logbook so that y'all can enter that information. Also project engineers, so you can go in and take a look, review them, that sort of thing. So that's under our web page. Pull some tabs out. So that's, and again, if you need to see the revised police rates, that's on under work zone as well. E-construction, Patrick has set up a lot of information under here that's helpful for everybody. Again, if you need to set up a new DOTD site manager, LaPave, DOTD, this is that registration link right here. HeadLight request forms are on here as well. If you're having issues, this links you directly to the various email links so you can get help. And we also have software links directly to, again, we're trying to get you to the remote via Citrix. So if you need to get into Site Manager, again, we're trying to create enough areas that if you get lost trying to shuffle through all these, if you go to construction, again, we're trying to point you back in the right direction. So you've got your LaPave, HeadLight, and Hall Hub. So all of these links will take you to the important spots that you might need to go to access any one of those programs. And again, that's all under e-construction, under our construction group. Again, we also have this construction services aspect. That's where you used to go to find the compliance information, you know, all your letting information, design builds, you know, again, project letting. So again, a lot of information was originally under construction services on the old web page. It is still there under the new web page. You just have to go to the appropriate links. But again, that's linked through our construction page. It's also here under doing business. Originally under the original website, there was the doing business tab, still there today. So again, construction services takes you to, a similar page. All the links aren't quite as fleshed out. Compliance has its own little block and contract services, things like that. But again, you can get to the construction letting information. So contractors, if you're wanting to see, what the apparent bid results were for the last one, or the, tabulated bids, that sort of information. Again, that's under doing business, construction services, and then the construction letting information. This also has the links for, a little further down, the monthly price indices for asphalt, fuel, and steel. Still has all the same information for the letting for this past year, lettings in the next 6 months, all the stuff that, contractors, y'all are usually interested in. The ready, willing, and able firms, all of that information. So this is also where you can still access Falcon. That's that link right there. So just kind of a quick and dirty access to most of the information that I think contractors and consultants will be involved in. So again, under the about section, employee portal, and then also, Office of Engineering and Construction, and then lastly, doing business, construction services. Those are your main areas where you'll find the information that used to be in other spots on the website. They're still in those areas generally, but the old links are broken. I'm trying to see if I've got. So I did a quick Google search just to show y'all if you had a previous link, or if you're trying to do it via Google. If you see a Google result pop up that shows this www.sp, that's going to be a broken link. That's to the old web page. So when you click on this, it should pull up the 404 not found. So what you want is, and this thing keeps wanting to share, but if you come back to this page, if you see it's, the regular home page, or, something without that www.sp, then that should be a link that's still valid. So this will take you directly back to the DoTD homepage. You can see that link is not broken. So if you're trying to Google, find something, it is starting to pull up some of this stuff since it has been a week. But generally speaking, all the previous Google results took you to the old web page, and those links are now broken. So be careful if you're just trying to Google it. You should be able to search on the main website for that information as well to find it. But again, this is where you go to find those various links.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Next up, Sarah Balmer is going to give us a quick update on Category 2 and 3 DocuSign forms.
All right. Just to let you know, I'm currently working on creating DocuSign templates for Category 2 and 3 change orders. The RFCO templates. I should create 2 types. I'll be creating one for the consultants, where we have a project coordinator. So we have signatures for the project coordinator and the area engineer, and then another one, just for in-house Category 2 and 3. And this way we'll have everything consistent, and hopefully that will resolve a lot of issues that I've been getting calls about. My goal is to have these templates ready and sent out for everyone, early next week. Everyone that has a DocuSign account, and I'll check off those and share the new DocuSign templates with y'all. And just a reminder, if you are not signed, if you're in-house and you're not signed up for DocuSign, you need to reach out to Mr. Forrest Buer and Mr. Dean Harrison, and they will help you set that up. Their contact information is on the intranet page. And then also for any consultants that have the DocuSign accounts, just let me know that you want the templates and I will, send them to you and you can import them into your DocuSign and get them, process them. And that's pretty much it. I should have that ready and hopefully that will resolve a lot of questions I've been getting.
Thank you, Sarah. All right, next topic. We've had several call-ins and some clarifications needed on high strength concrete, slump, and maturity testing. So we're going to let Chris and Patrick kind of go through that. We also included a document that was created by Luana when she was here that was attached to the meeting minutes. So if you haven't had a chance to look at that, take a look at it. But I'm going to turn it over to Chris and we'll go from there. Thanks, Chris.
Good morning, everyone. Can y'all hear me? Okay, good. So before we get into that, I did want to kind of echo what Matt said. So we have a new website, obviously, and a lot of our links from the materials site have moved around. It looks a lot different. I don't want to break Zoom, so I don't want to do the whole share screen thing and go through it with you. But basically, if you have any issues, just feel free to reach out to anybody here at the Materials Lab. Casey Browning, I think, has been fielding a lot of calls trying to help people get, find the information they need. But we had trouble ourselves accessing, and some of our older computers, I think we had to restart 5 or 6 times to actually be able to access the site. So just bear with us. We're working through some of that stuff. The aggregate AML, when you click that link, it still has the same problem that we've been battling for months and months with. It tries to bring you to a secure URL. So you have to go in and click in the search bar and actually delete the S and hit enter, and it should work if you do that. But if you're having any trouble like that, just feel free to call anybody here and we'll help you as best we can. So now let's get into the more controversial issues here that Brian just mentioned. So to start out with, on the curing chambers, we've had that spec out for a while now, and we're continually getting, I guess, as more and more people are getting projects where the new spec is in their contract. We're fielding questions about the requirements of the boxes. Do they have to have a certain brand, or where can they buy these boxes? And our guidance has been that there's really no specific requirements other than the box has to have the temperature controls and it has to have the temperature recording device to where that information can be turned over to DoTD. So there are boxes that can be purchased, and if anybody needs help with that, we bought one here ourselves. We could give you information about where to find those boxes or those curing chambers. But we also have had people build their own, so that's perfectly fine as long as it accomplishes or it has that functionality. Control the temperature within the specified range and record the temperature and be able to create a report. As far as discussion about is the box required to pour concrete, the guidance that we've given is yes, it is in the specification. If you don't have the curing chamber on site, you shouldn't be pouring concrete. I think headquarters construction is backing up that position. I think we've had a lot, we've been talking about this for a while, so everybody should be aware. And our guidance to the project engineer offices is we should not be pouring concrete without these boxes on the site. So if you have any questions with that, I guess, that needs to be discussed at the pre-con meetings. We encourage that the contractor invite their ready mix producer, the concrete supplier, be at the pre-con meetings and all that be hashed out. I know You know, a lot of times the question comes up, well, you know, where are we going to get power for these? But, you know, we understand that a lot of these, I guess, discussions need to take place early on. So you're not, you know, the concrete truck's not on its way and we're trying to figure out where we're going to put the curing chamber. So just please, work through those issues early in your contracts, and hopefully that'll avoid some headache later on. So the next issue, like Brian mentioned, we've had a lot of questions about high early strength concrete and the maturity method. A lot of the issues seem to be coming from, well, it's really two different things. First of all is the initial development of the maturity curve, and approving the mixed design, approving the maturity curve and the trial batch. So the guidance is we're changing some of the specifications to clarify this, but the district lab engineers should be the ones who are reviewing and approving the mixed designs along with the maturity curve and you know, being involved in the trial batch process. Now, we encourage DOTD to participate in that initial trial batch and development of the curve. We ask contractors, concrete producers, please collaborate with us, let us participate. But we also want to clarify that it's not mandatory. But you know, this is a somewhat new process. I say it's new to DOTD in a sense that we're just recently sort of adopting this as a common way to do business, right? And there are a lot of people out there that don't have much experience with it, and then obviously we've got a lot of you know, new staff as well that do not have a lot of experience with this. So, you know, as we all get more comfortable with this process, we need some collaboration and some, you know, we need to be working together on this through this process. But when it comes to the initial you know, developing the curve, the initial basically trial batch, one of the important things is the mix needs to be produced in the same way that you intend to produce it during production, you know, during the actual construction project. So if you're going to have accelerants added at the job site, then you need to mimic that when you're doing your trial batch. You know, you need to have the similar mixing times, and once you add your admixtures, similar revolutions in mixing when you're doing your trial batch, because that can throw things off drastically. We've had that happen here recently. Another thing is the placing the sensors. You know, the ASTM, it says put it in the center of the cylinder. So we've seen where they've just dropped the sensor in the bottom of the cylinder mold, fill it up with concrete. So there's those types of mistakes, I think, can have drastic, you know, impacts on the curve and how the verification process itself. Curing, I guess, moving now into the verification process. So we're going to be making 3 cylinders to break and a 4th one with a sensor in it. So it's critical that those specimens be cured the same way. You know, if you have 3 of them, if you take the 3 cylinders out, bring them to the lab, and you leave the sensor with the cylinder with the sensor in the ice chest, well, that nothing's going to match. And likewise, if you take the ice chest and bring it to the lab and leave the cylinder with the sensor out on the job site, none of that's going to match. It's critical that everything, when we do that verification process, that those cylinders all be treated the same way. Another point of confusion seems to be the concept that the cylinder breaks need to achieve the minimum strength, or we can't open it to traffic. And you know, that's really not the concept with the maturity method. It's more about the time temperature factor that you're looking at. So if you're comparing the verification cylinders to the reading that you got in the actual patches on the job site, and then you're looking at the curve and say, well, none of this is matching up. Well, it's not going to match up. You know, the best way I can explain it, it's kind of like baking a cake. If you take all of the ingredients needed to bake a cake, you know, you make two batches of cake batter and you make them identical. You put one in the oven at 350 degrees, and you put another one in an oven at 250 degrees. Well, the 350 is going to be ready, I guess, in about 30 minutes. I'm not a baker, but I'm assuming. The one that's at 250, I mean, that might take you 10 times as long. So it's very similar with the maturity method on the concrete. What we're really measuring is, does the indicated the time temperature factor that you get from the verification process, when you break those cores or those cylinders, that those verification cylinders, does it match on the curve with what the verification sensor told you it should match? It doesn't need to be what, I'm trying to think of how to say this more clearly. It's not going to be the same as the actual patch on the roadway, because that environment, the curing environment, is going to be different. That more massive amount of concrete is going to heat up a lot more quickly, and it's going to get a lot hotter. So just, if you have confusion about that, just please reach out to the materials lab, to me, Patrick, Amar, the folks at Headquarters Construction. There's just been a lot of confusion, and we're trying to work through it with everybody. Another thing that seems to happen a lot is when the information that we receive from the contractor or from the ready mix producer doesn't necessarily match when we go into like the initial maturity curve information. Some of the settings that are used, some of the equipment is used doesn't match what's being used in the field during construction, during the actual project. Some different technologies are used, and that causes us problems. So contractors, we're asking you, if at all possible, please make sure that whoever you hire to develop your curve, y'all coordinate and y'all use the same technology, and make sure that you give DoTD access to the whatever device, whatever software, whatever apps are needed to take the readings, because that's going to be a critical part of the process. So if DoTD doesn't have access to that, that's just going to throw a wrench in the whole process. So, early on, these are the kind of things that we need to be talking about at the pre-con meetings and whatever pre-pour conferences y'all need to have, and get all this stuff ironed out, because it oftentimes, DoTD ends up either rejecting saying that the mix doesn't validate, or rejecting the curve. And it a lot of times gets to the point where everybody just throws up their hands and they abandon the whole maturity method altogether. And that's not what we want. We really want to utilize this method because we think it's a good process. We think it's a good way to determine early strength for early lane opening. And it serves the public. That's what we should be thinking about here is, how can we get these roadways back open to the traveling public as quick as possible? And maturity method is a great way to do that, as long as we do it the right way, right? So Patrick, can you come in, chime in, and maybe clean up some of the stuff that I messed up right there?
Well, you stole on my thunder. I put together a bulleted list and you just run right through it. So a few of the other clarifications with the HES spec, maturity is required. So we're not, we're doing cylinders in lieu of maturity. It's written in there as maturity is required. The only case you'd really rely on cylinders is if you can't verify your maturity curve. In that case, then yes, you would want to try and get your cylinders to still the 2000 PSI. It doesn't go back to the old 3000 PSI requirement. We covered those. I think the only variable that we've seen here lately is some of these high early strength mixes tend to run a much higher slump than the allotted 4 inches of the type B and D because they have heavy water reducers in them, or Super P. Right now, it's still required that you get headquarter approval per specification, but there's talk of maybe looking at an allowance of this for high early strength.
Right. Patrick, we want to make sure that those trial batches have the appropriate admixtures when they're asking for a slump variance, right?
Right, right. So if they are asking for a slump variance, it is critical that the trial batch has all the admixtures in it that are planning to be used in the field. And if they start sending, like we saw a case where one truck went out with the heavy water reducer and the next truck went out without it, that throws the maturity curve out the window, because anytime you're applying an admixture that has either an acceleration effect or a retardant effect, that's going to alter your time component of your time temperature curve, which essentially alters how your maturity curve would gain strength. So we have to monitor those very closely. And as Chris said, you want to try and mimic, if you're adding the accelerant in the truck in the field, then you want to mix, account for your batch time in the mixer, and then add your accelerant so that you can properly create your maturity curve according to how you would be creating it in the field. I put the visual together just because we had examples. A typical maturity curve, you're going to see this nice logarithmic curve fit of your data points. One key thing is usually you want to get a bunch of points early on, especially around that 2000 mark. You may run some extra points. And then you want to try and have that kind of 1 point way out very further. Usually that's like a 24-hour mark for your high early strength mixes, because all these are within, that kind of 3 to 5 hour mark, and then one at the 24 just to show that overall shape of the curve. We have seen that some that aren't so fit. In this case, I had several of my trial batch breaks that were significantly lower than what the curve fit showed. So obviously this isn't an ideal curve fit using a logarithmic function. So in some cases, it may be better to use a different function. And again, this only applies to the range of which I'm doing my curve fit. So in this case, it might have been more beneficial to get a couple extra points outside. But ultimately, in this case, because it didn't follow the typical curve, we told the project office that, hey, if they weren't really in a time crunch for traffic either. So we see that, on this curve, once I get out to the 600 range, I'm basically well above my 2000 limit with a safety factor, or factor of safety, excuse me. So in this case, we're able to still use maturity. We just put a few extra caveats on it. So if you have cases where you're not fitting the curve properly, or you have cases where things don't look right, get in touch with us. We'll walk through it with you. We'll work through it with you and come up with a solution. Because ultimately, I for one feel that maturity in a lot of cases gives you a more representative answer of what's in the field than these cylinders do, especially when we're having to travel an hour to the lab with them. They're thrown in ice chest, things like that. So for the verification curve, do keep in mind that we're not trying to recreate the curve. We're just trying to verify 1 point on that curve. So when you're breaking your cylinders, all your cylinders are broken back to back to back. It's not let me break one, oh, it didn't meet strength, let me break the next. No, this is all we're doing is verifying a single point on the curve. So before you start breaking your cylinders, you take your latest maturity reading from your sensor cylinder, not the one in the field. The sensor cylinder that's riding with your brake cylinders. That means that your inspector has to have the ability to read that cylinder at the lab. So make sure that they're able to access whatever application they need to read the cylinder. Then you break all 3 cylinders back to back, and you verify within at least a negative 10%. There is no cap on the positive side. So this is just an example of the one that we went out and broke here on I-10. You saw that we were within the negative 10%. So everything's good, curve validated, and they're good to run for, was it the next month, or I think it's a certain amount of volume or a month on the time basis without having to verify. So again, just keep in mind that your cylinders are not representative of the patch. So there's a big difference when you start looking at maturity. If you have any questions, if you need any help, feel free to reach out. We've gone to one project site and was out there at 2 a.m. helping validate the curve. So we're more than willing to put in the effort and assist if needed.
So I did want to add, so like Brian mentioned earlier, we attached a document to this agenda, to this Zoom invite. It's maturity meter guidance. Basically, this is something that Luana had put together a while back. We kind of updated it a little bit. We went through and revised a few things. So this is the guidance that we put out. You know, this document was initially written as if a private lab was going to do the entire verification process. And, you know, a lot of, like on LPA jobs, that might be the way it's handled. But for most of our DoTD projects, I think the way it's actually being handled is the district is doing the verification process in-house. So we added that kind of caveat in there that if the district chooses to do verification, then it changes it up a little bit. So rather than just receive the report, you know, we're going to participate in that process. Like Patrick mentioned, you're only looking for 1 point on the curve. If you can verify that what you predicted the strength to be matches 1 point on the curve, then the curve verifies. The guidance in here is we recommend that you do you break those verification cylinders between 24 to 48 hours. I realize that a lot of our patching jobs, we're looking for strength a lot sooner than that. But the process of verifying, like Patrick said, again, doesn't mean we're looking for breaks to reach a strength before we open. The verification process is simply to match a predicted point on the curve. If it's 24 hours, you know, say you open to traffic at, you know, 6 hours or whatever it is, and then you break that verification set later in that day and it matches up, then great. Then you verified, and you don't have to verify again for 30 days, or I think we got it at 1,000 square yards. So you don't have to verify every pour. I think that's a bit of a misconception too. We seem to be trying to verify a lot more often than we need to. If it doesn't verify at that 24-hour mark or whatever, then, well, hey, the curve's off. We got to make a change. We got to start over. We got to come up with another. We got to figure out what's going on. But if everything checks out, we can just continue operating as is. It's perfectly fine to try to verify early, in that 3-4 hour mark. But we do see that a lot of the curves, there is more error early in the with the logarithmic curve. There are some states, I think Florida has a more complex, like a quadratic equation or whatever it is. I don't know what polynomial that they use that might be more accurate early. I think Amar, if you want more information about that, I know Amar's looked into that a good bit. We are considering coming out with our own spreadsheet and just sending it out, kind of standardizing and say, hey, this is what we want y'all to use for contractors when they submit those curves to us. We're looking into that, working towards that. And then another thing we're doing is this guidance that we put out. We're updating the QA manual for concrete paving. We are going to put some of this information into the QA manual so that it's in an actual official document. It's a lot of information to try to put in the spec. So we're going to put it in the QA manual, we think, and hope we're working diligently towards that. But hopefully here in the next couple of months, we can have something to send out that's, an updated QA manual. So once again, if you have any questions with the process, please feel free to contact any of us here. Primarily me, Amar, and Patrick have been more involved than anybody else at the lab. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Look, we just threw a lot of information there at you. So if you have a project utilizing maturity you have any questions, reach out to us. We'll come out there and we'll go through the process with you. So just let us know. So that's everything we wanted to talk about. This is our Q&A open discussion time now. So we've had a few questions in the chat. Seems like we've answered those as they've come in. So just like to open it up. Not everybody all at once.
So I've had a few people tell me on the website issue, it seems like certain offices were not able to access it. If you're in that boat, create an OTS ticket and list any users or, whatever office. That's how it's being handled. So
Yeah, the TS is set there where still sending tickets in still.
Yeah, continue to send tickets on anything with the website, anything that's not working correctly. HeadLight, the more tickets we have, the more leverage we have to get things fixed.
So we have a question from Barry about where we can find the process for the DocuSign or the RFCO forms and DocuSign. I haven't posted those to the outside internet. So Barry, right now, just email me and I can send you the template. And the template is pretty self-explanatory, but I can walk you through it. I'm going to try to put together something just for these templates on how to, fill it out. It's pretty simple. They're templates that are preset. So you're just filling out who it's being routed to. And it'll give you the title of the person for each, the first person you're routed to the second, to third, and fields are already preset. So when they receive that email that it's their turn to fill out DocuSign, they'll know what it'll show them. They'll only give them the option of filling out what they're supposed to.
yep, that can be a public document. Let Matt know.
Yeah.
He's our content manager. We'll get it posted on the public site.
Matt can get it posted. All right, guys. Looks like we still have almost 100 people on the call. I know somebody out there's got a question. If you have that question, I guarantee you 30 other people have the same question. Is DocuSign required for RFCO forms, or can we use a text box?
I think we prefer that y'all sign up with a DocuSign.
We
And
prefer DocuSign.
yes.
It's the best way to track it. It's the most efficient way to get it signed. It moves through the process more quickly. The RFCOs have been moving pretty quickly through. Haven't really seen any issues with them. And I'm actually seeing them now on the Category 1 change orders. Very easy to review when you have the attached RFCO. It's easy to get it approved and get it moved faster. So seems to be working. Going back to the old website, I don't think so.
That of course is above our pay grade.
Yeah.
I can't comment.
We're always moving forward, forging better, right? Well, hearing no additional questions, I'd like to thank everybody for the time. Thank you for participating. We're going to continue to push this. We're going to continue to communicate. Appreciate my team and all the hard work they put together for this. And look, if there's something you didn't want to talk about in front of 100 people, just call us afterwards, shoot us an email. We'll go through whatever you got. So again, appreciate your time. It's a beautiful day outside. So have a good one.
Thanks, everybody.